Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to peel back the label on all the products we use every day to uncover the harm they can cause, and honestly, it's often in ways we would never expect. All right, let's just dive right into it.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Are the products you use every day truly safe? It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's surprisingly complicated. I mean, from the shampoo in your shower to the packaging on your food, there's this hidden world of substances and impacts. So how can we really know for sure?
To really get a grip on the scale of this, just think about this number, 2,000. That's about how many new chemicals are introduced into our economy every single year for use in everyday items. And what's really staggering is that for so many of them, their long-term effects are, well, they're a complete mystery.
And you know, it's not just about what's new. Right now, there are over 1,100 companies in the EU and the US that are producing or importing hazardous chemicals that are already on watch lists. These are things that are probably going to be banned or restricted really soon. So this isn't some far-off problem. It's happening right here, right now.
So these numbers really just show the true scope of the problem. This isn't about a couple of bad products here and there. It's a huge systemic challenge in how we make things.
So how in the world do you tackle a problem this big? Well, the solution has to start with a new standard, a really ambitious mission for what a truly safe product ought to be.
Let's put a formal definition on this. A future-fit product is something that's completely benign, which just means harmless to people and to nature. And this isn't just about when you're using it. No, it also covers what happens after you've thrown it away. It's a total cradle-to-grave perspective.
So this framework, it breaks down harm into three different categories. First, you've got the obvious one, products that are intended to cause harm, like weapons. Second, there are those where harm is a, let's say, reasonably expected outcome, like a diesel engine spitting out toxic fumes. And third, and this one is a bit more subtle, you have products that actually reinforce behaviors that hurt society. Things that might promote addiction or misinformation.
The core idea here is as simple as it is powerful. It sets a really high bar. It demands that we look at safety in a whole new way, one that thinks about not just direct chemical harm, but all the negative impacts on people, both their physical and mental health, and on the environment.
Okay, so now that we have the mission, let's check out the toolkit. These are the key questions a company has to ask to see if their products can actually measure up. The very first step is to deconstruct it. What is this product really made of? And that means breaking it down into its basic uniform materials. The glass, the ink on the label, the metal in the cap, and then checking every single one against lists of hazardous substances.
Next up, we have to look at the product in action. How do people actually interact with it? Is there any way, anywhere at all, that someone could be exposed to a harmful substance just by using it the way it's supposed to be used? That could be through touching it, breathing it in, or even accidentally swallowing a tiny bit.
And finally, the investigation has to look beyond the garbage can. What happens after the product's useful life is totally over? Could the stuff that's left behind, like the product itself or its packaging, start to leak harmful chemicals into the soil or the water or the air? This is exactly where so many of these hidden harms are found.
So all these questions, they become a formal three-step assessment. 1, identify the composition. 2, engage suppliers. You got to ask them directly if they intentionally added any substances of concern. And then 3, if you find one, you assess the harm and figure out if its specific use in the product is a real problem.
Okay, theory is great and all, but let's see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to use our investigator's toolkit on a fictional company, Acme Incorporated, and their line of lemonade.
So here is Acme's product line. They've got a traditional lemonade that comes in both glass and plastic bottles, and they have a sugar-free version that only comes in plastic. Now keep an eye on those revenue numbers. They're going to be really important for how we figure out the company's overall score.
All right, first finding, and it's in the use phase. The traditional lemonades, they pass, no problem. But that sugar-free version, it has an artificial sweetener that Acme has never actually analyzed for safety. And in this framework, an unknown risk is an unacceptable risk. So it automatically fails the test, making it 0% fit for use.
So, when we calculate the total score for this use phase,
We have to weigh it by revenue. The products that are fit bring in $730,000, while the unfit one brings in $300,000. This gives Acme an overall fitness score of 71% for this phase. You know, it's not terrible, but there's definitely room to improve.
But hold on, because here comes the twist. Let's move to the end-of-life assessment. The glass bottle? Totally fine. But it turns out the labels on both types of plastic bottles have toxic dyes in them. And when those bottles end up in a landfill, those dyes can leak out into the soil and water. This is a classic hidden harm, and it makes both plastic bottle products 0% fit for end of life.
The impact on their score here is just dramatic. Now, only the glass bottle product is considered fit, and that only represents $300,000 of revenue. The unfit plastic bottle products, they account for $730,000. This makes their end-of-life score just plummet to only 29%. It's a perfect example of how a product that seems totally safe when you're using it can become a huge problem after you throw it away.
So that ACME case really shows how this kind of framework can uncover these hidden problems. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here.
This isn't just some niche thing for corporations to worry about. Making sure products are benign directly supports several of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We're talking about contributing to good health, clean water, responsible consumption, and protecting life below water. It really connects a company's day-to-day actions to a global plan for a better world.
And here's a really important distinction to get. The Future Fit framework separates product impact, that's the harm from using or getting rid of the item, from operational impact, which is the harm from making it in the first place. So think of it this way. The pollution from a car's exhaust is a product harm. The pollution from the factory that built the car is an operational harm. They're both super important, but they have to be looked at separately.
So just to tie this all together, let's be super clear about what counts as a substance of concern. The framework basically says it's anything that's either inherently dangerous to our health or the environment, or it's been flagged by a credible group like the EU, or it's something that we know sticks around and builds up in nature. You know, things like microplastics or heavy metals. And that brings us to our final thought. Just imagine for a second walking into a store where every single product had its use phase and its end-of-life fitness scores printed right on the label. How would that change what companies make? And, maybe more importantly, how would it change what you choose to buy? That's the real power of this kind of radical transparency. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.